Today, we have a video regarding two of my favorite hybrids in the Jurassic franchise, both being pretty ferocious creatures, but what if they met? We've got Indominus Rex and the Indoraptor. What would have happened if they met? Do they fight? Do they become friends? Let's figure it out. I don't really think they become friends, but maybe it's like a mutual destruction of everyone. The video is by Goji Center, and let's get right to it.
The Indominus Rex and Indoraptor. Both some
I
of the
love
most
the
dangerous
Indoraptor, bro. I
creatures
like
in the
that
franchise,
color
with
down the
death
side,
of one causing
that
the
yellowish
birth of another.
line.
But what if they met?
What if they met?
Today on Goji Center, we'll break down what would happen if space and time were warped and the
so
Indoraptor
sick,
was placed back on his Lanublar
and so
years
dangerous
before it was created. If unleashed into the domain of its forerunner, would the island run red with the blood of hybrid monstrosities
now,
from
the
a horrific
Indominus,
battle?
he's
would
bigger,
something happen
obviously,
that
or
could
she's
lead
bigger,
to
whatever you
even
want to call
more
it.
carnage
But
taking place? Time to
I
find
don't know,
out.
bro. I just like the Raptor.
Highly intelligent animals have greater capacity for
If you guys
emotion
haven't
than
yet, by the
more
way, scroll down for me.
simple-minded beasts.
Hit that
And with
subscribe
this
button.
can come more dangers.
And hit that
They
like
attack
button. Much
without
love.
provocation, they lash out at helpless targets, and they might even go on a killing spree without eating anything.
Was that guy still
Numerous
alive
tragic
in the
incidents
bear
involving
one?
intelligent species show
My
this.
gosh.
Often, this is because these creatures are highly social and are kept away from their own kind in bad environments. Problem behaviors aren't corrected by elders or peers,
Oh, come
and
on,
trauma
elephant.
can only further aggravate the situation. Add in more problems often caused by humans, and you get horrid events like
I'll tell you
Silica
one
the
thing,
orca
bro.
or Travis the chimpanzee.
You're never gonna
acting
catch me in a
far
cage with a
outside
bear.
their species' typical behaviors. The Indoraptor and Indominus have
Or with an
all of these
Indoraptor.
problematic hallmarks amplified. Ask just about any animal behavior expert, and they'll tell you the conditions either hybrid was kept in was just a recipe for disaster.
That's facts.
Today, the Goji
Can't
Center
keep
team
'em
will travel back in time and
caged up
secretly
like that.
place the Indoraptor inside the Indominus enclosure,
Yeah.
and then we'll just see what happens. When
Dang.
the Indoraptor first appears inside the paddock, the two would inevitably encounter one another. Let's say it happens at night with typical lax InGen security, so no human interference can come into play.
Okay.
Given their genetic templates, both would immediately smell the other and move
Who do
to
you think would
confront
win
the
in a
first
fight?
enemy either had
Let me
ever
know in the
encountered.
comments.
What happens next might rely on how old the
I think Indominus Rex
is when the Indoraptor appears.
That's what I was
One
gonna
might think
say.
A younger I-Rex would be less hostile to the Indoraptor, but let's
If he's a
remember
little
how she
older.
reacted to one of her own kind in her youth.
Where's the sibling?
She ate it.
She
Well,
ate it.
that answers that. But why did this
Ugh.
happen? And why did the Indominus kill her sibling, but later teamed up with the Raptor squad? Was she just crazy, or did Jurassic World seriously screw up? Yeah, if you couldn't guess, this screw-up is on the park, and insights to real-life animal behavior can tell us why. Siblicide is the occurrence in nature where one sibling
just sounds
kills
bad.
another.
Yeah.
Usually, this is very rare in
Oh my-
social apex predators, almost non-existent
Dang.
in wolves, orcas, and lions. After all, for a social predator, your closest relatives are your best allies. And given the Indominus had a hefty amount of social T-Rex and Raptor DNA, she should have been the same under ideal circumstances. In species
But
that
she
do
wasn't.
kill their
She
siblings,
chopped.
it's usually because of limited resources like food or space when they are young. Lack of ample food
Poor
or
fellas.
aggravating spaces cause a lot of stress to a young animal. And that's exactly what happened when the park
Even as
staff
a
shoved
baby,
the
that thing looked
Indominus
cool.
into where they did. It might be nice to think Jurassic World was a wonderfully run theme park with the best animal care out there, considering
Could
how
you
expensive
imagine
its
going to a
animals were,
theme
but
park
there
like
were
that?
some major red flags.
I could not be in
Letting
that
kids
audience.
chase around, swinging pointy toys at, screaming, grabbing at, and riding on easily
I'm
scared
watching this
baby
movie again
animals,
afterwards, by the
feeding
way.
live
I have
goats
to.
that can't be cleared for
I miss
internal
it.
diseases to a T-Rex before an audience, cramming a bunch of very aggressive and wide-ranging pterosaurs into a single aviary.
Goji Center's
When's
getting-
the last time
he's
you
getting
saw a
aggressive.
well-run zoo letting people do any of this crap? This
Right.
place was a disaster waiting to happen. And one look at the Indominus
Would not wanna
paddock
be in
makes
that
it
water.
pretty evident everything about the hybrid that went wrong starts here. Animal care in captivity has thankfully come a long way from just shoving them into cramped cages for a
Shaving
shocking
the
public.
teeth is crazy.
The standard optimal habitat for a large predator like a lion requires at least 8,000 to 10,000 feet squared of space. More
For a
if you plan to
lion?
have more than one.
So what about
And
an
you
actual
best
dinosaur?
Also stock the paddock with shelter, toys, and ease to move around. This keeps the animals lively, content, and less likely to develop mental problems. The Indominus got none of these, and it probably is why she killed her sibling.
I guess that
Looking at
makes
outside
sense.
diagrams and shots from the movie, the Indominus paddock would have had an interior space of about 32,000 to 43,000 square feet. That is ridiculously
not-
small for
that's
her
not
and
big.
probably drove her nuts. It might sound like a lot of space, but let's remember
Not
that's
for a
only about
dinosaur
4
that
times
big.
the space for a lion, for an animal 40 times more massive. And it
Yeah,
was
it
cramped
don't
with
work.
dense foliage, high walls, and nothing to interact with besides her feeding crane. The park staff were clearly more focused on adding ringside seats and high walls than good floor space.
Ringside
All this
seats
for an
is
animal
crazy.
Which apparently
For
most
an
of the
Indominus
handlers
Rex.
and veterinary staff were kept completely in the dark about. Siblicide also tends to happen when animals are very young, both because the smaller sibling can't fight back as much, and because the older sibling hasn't developed mentally enough to think about anything but itself.
Not this.
To the young
Thank you.
Indominus, anything in sight is a threat to what little space and food she has. A young Indominus would attack the Indoraptor on sight, just like she did her sibling.
Yep.
As manic as the Indominus was, by the time of Jurassic World's events, she was
Hey,
old
a
enough to
pack
be
of
able to figure
Indoraptors and
things
it's
out,
over.
such as how to avoid threats or
I'll
how to
take
make
3 of
valuable allies instead of kill everything on sight. Had the park introduced the 2 Indominus as near adults, there's a chance they might have gotten along just fine. So, if the
That would've been
Indoraptor was
dangerous.
introduced to the Indominus when the Rex was still a growing teenager or young adult, about half the weight she was in Jurassic World, around 30 feet long, 12 feet tall, 3 tons, then you'd probably get a bloodbath on your hands.
A
Best hope
bloodbath
those
regarding
bleachers in
who,
the paddock
though?
have a marked splash zone. The Indoraptor is faster and more agile, with impressive durability to boot.
Definitely
Even
is.
if he was smaller, he's not totally outclassed in size, to where his speed can't help out and might not try to just run away if the overly aggressive young Indominus charges him. The Indominus,
I would say the
meanwhile,
solo
is
battle,
much
Indominus
heavier
Rex
and would
wins,
hold the edge
in my
striking
opinion.
force and weight if the two got into a
Let me know your
wrestling
opinion
match.
in the comments.
The Indoraptor struggled against a smaller, more agile, and more experienced Blue, even if she wasn't in prime condition.
That's facts.
The younger Indominus is a bigger and more reckless target. If the Indoraptor can leverage his climbing ability to scale up the walls or trees to pounce from above, he might just pull a win against the young hybrid Rex. But if the fight is dragged to the ground, the Indominus might well wind up mauling or crushing the Indoraptor.
That would be a battle to see.
Either
Front
way,
row
the
seats?
night ends with either one of them in a bloody mess.
Give me a
and
ticket.
The other
I'm in.
dead, or
All
them
right,
both
I'm in.
taking each other
Ah,
out.
back row seats. I don't want to
But
be in the front.
Let's say the Indoraptor
Just
was
in case.
introduced right before the events of Jurassic World, where it suddenly finds itself in an enclosed space with a very, very
Ooh,
big
with the
new
small
roommate.
space,
If
too?
a fight broke out,
Oh,
it would
brother.
still be a bloody and gruesome battle. The Indoraptor is quite durable to shrug
I like
off
how they made the
gunfire and
arena,
might
too.
cause some nasty cuts or gashes on the Indominus if it climbed onto her and went on the attack. With the Indoraptor's superb night vision and echolocation abilities, he would have managed to find the Indominus regardless of if she tried to conceal herself to gauge the
Hunt her
situation.
down immediately.
The fight, however, would go very differently. If you think the Indoraptor's speed could cinch it a win against a near-adult Indominus,
I'm saying no.
here's a reality check for you.
Yeah, I'm saying no.
For all of the Indoraptor's toughness and rampant aggression,
I like the
it's still
Indoraptor. He's
outsized
sick
about
looking, but
8 to 1. If the
Yeah.
Indominus could grab and wrench off smaller, agile velociraptors trying to slice up her back, she could easily get a grip on the Indoraptor and hurl it down.
yeah, Indominus
From
Rex
there,
taking
if she
that.
went for a solid
For
bite
sure.
or stomp, no amount of bullet-resistant armor is going to stop the Indominus from crushing down on the smaller hybrid's body.
Look at that.
After all, this same Indominus did later crunch through bulletproof glass and held up to an angry Rexy, bashing her into sharp metal. If this encounter resulted in a death brawl, it would end like virtually every other battle between two predators in nature. Size does matter.
Size matters
And
when
with
you're the
Indoraptor
Indominus
as
Rex.
aggressive as it is, some kind of conflict is inevitable.
Look at that
It might have
monster,
never
man. I
encountered
gotta
another
watch the movies
dinosaur
again.
before, but it only knows how to attack anything in front of it. But what if it didn't end with a chewed-up dead raptor and a clawed-up mauled Rex? After all, the Indominus, by the time we saw her in the movie, manic and frenzied as she was coherent enough to talk with the Raptor Squad and possibly even Toro, even with all of the crazy chaos going
Toro?
on. And some speculate the reason Rexy got first blood in the Main Street Brawl was because the Indominus was trying to communicate with her as well. To the Indominus, the Indoraptor is literally blood of her blood, looking and sounding more like the I Indominus than any other
I
animal
wonder if they
she
would actually
encounter later
communicate.
on.
Be like, hey, let's
After
get
an
out of here and
initial
take it over.
confrontation, probably resulting in the Indoraptor pouncing onto the Indominus,
I guess they would just
the
fight.
bigger hybrid could wrench the smaller monster off and pin it down. Restrained, the Indoraptor would listen, and best listen good if it wants to live.
That's true.
As crazy as the Indoraptor is, self-preservation is something very hard to totally remove
She's like,
from any
listen,
animal.
we're moving.
Whilst the Indoraptor was slaughtering people left and right as it rampaged across Lockwood Manor like a maniac, it did stop and evaluate its surroundings. When climbing onto the glass roof of the museum after Maisie and company, it did pause and realize the roof was unstable instead of just recklessly charging after them. An out-of-control
So it's got some
Scorpius
smarts.
would have just leapt right into the trap.
Yeah, Scorpius
The
is
Indo
goofy.
realized the glass portions of the roof wouldn't hold its weight and changed its advance to avoid falling. The only reason the Indo plummeted to its doom was the sudden arrival of Blue jumping on top of it and putting too much weight on the roof.
Savage raptor.
Smart enough to know doom when it sees it, the Indoraptor could decide to yield to the Indominus and stand down.
Okay.
And if the Indominus could talk to Velociraptors, it could talk to the other hybrid. The two now have a pack and a clear pecking order.
That's not a good
And
pack.
things would
It's
have
a
gotten
strong pack.
astronomically worse for everybody in the park if this all went down soon before the Indominus was going to execute her escape.
Yeah.
Remember, this hybrid monster
Indoraptor
was
and an
smart enough
Indominus
to
Rex
deduce the
mixed?
tracker in her
Not
body
mixed,
meant
but
something and
on
plan
a
around
team?
it. And given security was lacking enough that they failed
That's
to
a
notice
wrap.
she could camouflage or moderate her body temperature, it's possible they might fail to notice the Indoraptor hiding in there with her, even if it didn't have these abilities. Trying to track a warm-blooded animal that isn't almost 20 feet tall in a hot tropical environment with thermal sensors is going to be near pointless anyways because of all the
Say it's
added
pretty
heat.
difficult.
If the Indominus can keep a lid on the Indoraptor, the inevitable escape is going to be even worse. With the Indoraptor's climbing abilities and speed, it might be able to escape on its own before Owen even got
brothers,
duped into
she could
entering
just be
the
like, hey,
habitat. And if
go
it
get
stuck
this
around
guy,
until its
unlock
alpha
the
made her
gate,
bid for
let's
escape,
get this money.
Owen might have a substantially harder time getting out of that paddock alive with a faster Indoraptor chasing him down. With possibly no living witnesses, the park staff would be caught completely flat-footed by the existence of the second hybrid forming a pack with the Indominus. At best, they might get a glimpse of the Indo during the brutal takedown of the ACU
Oh, my
team.
goodness.
At worst, they'd have no
He got
clue what was
disrespected.
picking off people and animals alongside the Indominus. In a weird way, two things said about either hybrid would come true. Owen warned that the Indominus didn't even know what she was and how she'd fit into the food chain. Dr. Wu proclaimed
They'd
the
take over the
Indoraptor
world,
couldn't
bro.
bring out its full potential.
Maybe not the
because it
world,
lacked
but
a
definitely
mother.
that city.
With the two ruthless apex predators united,
I think we could
they'd
get 'em
find out
eventually.
the answers to both very quickly. With the Indominus rampaging through paddocks and causing the massive breakout of the pterosaur aviary, the Indoraptor would work as a flanker to keep her covered. Any attempts to locate or track the Indominus would go sideways with a fast, unpredictable, bulletproof raptor always
And
near
it's
her
so
ready
quick,
to ambush
dude.
any who came close. And just when things couldn't get worse, this idiot gets involved. And with Owen
The
possibly
disrespect.
not making it out of the Indominus paddock alive or not, once the Raptor squad get involved, things would only spiral more out of control. Remember, Hoskins was insistent on setting up a death match between the Indominus and Raptors, with or without Owen Grady on hand to coordinate things. If Barry can't stop what's happening, the squad would get turned loose and
Dang.
find the Indominus and its friend.
Maybe even
Remember,
more
nobody
added to the
foresaw
squad?
Indominus being able to command the Raptors coming. And even if they figured out some kind of dinosaur was helping her, they'd have no idea it was some sort of raptor. And let's be real, Hoskins isn't smart enough to put 2 and 2 together without getting a 5.
Yank.
Seeing how the Raptor squad tore InGen security apart without any help from the Indominus, they'd only get shredded quicker with the Indoraptor launching out of cover to join
That's
in.
facts.
And at this point, it's basically game over for Jurassic World. Even as inexperienced as she was, the Indominus tore a bloody trail through the park all on her own. It took a lot of bullets, 3 raptors, a T-Rex, and a very timely Mosasaurus to put her
Very
down.
timely.
With things as derailed
And that was
as
just
they
by
are,
herself.
that's not happening.
Now
And
imagine if
nothing
she
on
had the
island would be
Indoraptor
a
too.
serious threat to her new pack. The hybrid raptor pack would quickly establish themselves as the new apex predators of the overrun island, with nothing
Oh,
short
brother.
of large collective herds of powerful
poor
herbivores
lady.
able to hold them off. InGen would no doubt try to reclaim some of their assets, but with the Indominus and Indoraptor impossible to track and having a whole island to run around, it would be a huge endeavor. They were already crippled from Jurassic World going under and Masrani dying. This
Man.
isn't salvageable. And a certain group of kids left on the island might have an extremely dangerous time ahead of them, with Toro as the last thing they need to be worried about. Other companies like Biosyn and Manticorp no doubt might try to pillage Nublar
So
too,
it would be a
but
wrap,
only
basically,
at a very
is what
heavy
they're saying.
cost.
They
Unless
can
someone tries
team up
something like bombardment from the air, the
and pretty much
Indominus
take over
might
the world,
reign
or
over
like I
Isla
said,
Nublar
at least the
without
city.
serious threat.
And then it's a wrap from there. Subscribe, please. Let me know, what do you think would happen? Would they take over the city? Would they fight each other? I don't really know. What I do know is I will see you on tomorrow's video. Thank you for watching with me. I love ya. Goodbye.